All right, let's just jump right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating explainer. We're stepping into the moral courtroom, Yayati, Sarmishtha, and the anatomy of a loophole. We're going to be looking at an incredible text from the Mahabharata, which is, of course, one of ancient India's absolute greatest epics. But we aren't just looking at a mythological story here. We're actually examining a legendary ethical debate. This is a story all about duty, vows, and the overwhelming, undeniable power of human desire. Think of it essentially as an ancient courtroom drama, playing out between two people in a garden, passionately arguing over the strict letter of the law versus the spirit of human necessity.
But before we even meet our characters and get into their conflict, I want you to consider your own moral compass for a second. When is it actually acceptable to break a sacred vow? What does it take to ethically justify breaking a strict, binding promise? Is it, ever really okay? As we go through this explainer, keep this question right in the back of your mind, because it is the exact dilemma our protagonist is about to face head-on.
So, let's set the stage. Part 1. The Royal Setup.
To get our bearings, our story centers on King Yayati, his queen Devayani, and her companion, who, technically speaking, is actually her slave, Sarmishtha. Sarmishtha happens to be the daughter of a very powerful figure named Vrishaparvan. So day one starts with King Yayati establishing his new bride, Devayani, in the royal inner apartments. Meanwhile, he places Sarmishtha in a separate mansion near the Asoka woods. A little later, around year 2, Devayani gives birth to a son. And then, in true mythological fashion, a literal 1,000 years just pass by in joy and bliss. Yeah, a millennium. After all that time, Sarmishtha, having attained puberty, realizes her season has come, and she decides she simply cannot let her youth fade in vain while she stays husbandless.
Now here is the absolute baseline rule the king is operating under. When Yayati married Devayani, her father, the incredibly powerful Usanas, gave Yayati a very specific, inescapable command. He said Sarmishtha must never be summoned to his bed. And Yayati gave his word. He made a vow. This right here, this is the immovable object in our story.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, Sarmishtha's Dilemma.
Picture this. One day, the king is just wandering listlessly through the Asoka woods, and he stumbles upon Sarmishtha, who is completely alone. She sees her shot, and she takes it. There are 0 witnesses around. She approaches the king with joined palms, praises his handsome features, praises his noble lineage, and then she boldly makes her request. She tells him she's well-born, beautiful, and her season has arrived. She explicitly directly asks the king to give her a child.
And that kicks off Section 3, the ethical debate. Sarmishtha doesn't just beg him, though. She argues her case. She acts as a plaintiff, trying to legally and morally bypass the king's strict vow. What we have here is a classic legal and moral standoff. On one side, Yayati's stance is purely duty-bound. He admits she's flawless, he admits she's beautiful, but his hands are completely tied by that higher command. On the other side, Sarmishtha's stance is deeply personal and biological. She wants a child, she wants fulfillment, and she is dead set on getting the king to agree. The debate is officially on.
Sarmishtha comes out swinging with her first argument, presenting this absolutely fascinating ancient loophole. She argues that lying, or, breaking one's word, is entirely excusable under 5 very specific circumstances. She lists them out. During a joke, regarding women sought to be enjoyed, at weddings, when facing immediate peril, or to prevent the loss of one's entire fortune. She basically tells Yayati that because he promised his wife he would confine himself to her alone, he essentially lied, and that lying for the sake of romance, or women sought to be enjoyed, is not actually a sin. She's literally giving him a cultural get-out-of-jail-free card.
But Yayati? He is acting as a strict, unyielding judge here. He shuts down this loophole immediately. He argues that a monarch just cannot rely on loopholes. A king must be a flawless model of truth for his people, because a ruler who lies faces ultimate destruction. For Yayati, even the extreme peril of losing everything still wouldn't justify breaking his word, so argument 1 is completely dismissed.
Sarmishtha doesn't even miss a beat. She pivots right into her second argument, which, honestly, is incredibly clever. She shifts from trying to invalidate his vow to totally redefining their relationship. She states, one's friend's marriage is the same as one's own. Since her friend Devayani chose him, well, Yayati is effectively Sarmishtha's husband as well. By this logic, he wouldn't be breaking a rule by being with her at all. He'd actually be fulfilling a marital duty.
Now Yayati is legitimately backed into a corner. He's trapped by a competing duty.
he reveals that he actually has a second vow, to always grant what someone directly asks of him. Talk about a paradox, right? Vow number 1, never be with Sarmishtha. Vow number 2, always give people exactly what they ask for. Caught between these two absolute rules, he throws his hands up and asks her to tell him what he should legally and morally do.
Sensing she's got him on the ropes, Sarmishtha prepares to deliver the knockout punch. To do this, she invokes a very established ancient rule regarding the ownership of slaves and property. This text explicitly states that a wife, a slave, and a son cannot actually own anything themselves. Whatever they are and whatever they earn always and entirely belongs to their master. It's a pretty harsh ancient reality, but watch exactly how she uses it to her advantage.
Look at how brilliant this logical progression is. This is the absolute climax of her case. Step 1. She establishes that she is Devayani's slave and property. Step 2. Yayati is Devayani's husband, making him her master and lord. Step 3. Therefore, by the transitive property of ancient societal laws, Sarmishtha and everything she is already completely belongs to Yayati. Boom! She just bypassed his original vow by proving she is already his property.
So, where does this all land? That brings us to Section 4, the final verdict.
How exactly does the stoic, truth-bound king respond to an airtight rationalization like that? Well, before he can even answer, she frames her ultimate request perfectly. She tells him that by agreeing, he isn't committing a sin. No, he is absolving her from sin. By giving her a child, he's protecting her virtue and allowing her to practice the highest virtue in their world, becoming a mother. She takes her logical trap and wraps it up beautifully in a moral imperative.
So, what actually happens? Well, Yayati is completely won over by the truth of everything she just argued. He accepts her logic entirely, he honors her by protecting her virtue, and they do spend time together. She gets exactly what she was after. And in due course, the text tells us, she brings forth a lotus-eyed son with the splendor of a celestial child. The logical loophole successfully creates life.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. Did Yayati actually uphold his vows by navigating that incredibly complex hierarchy of ancient duties? Or did he just use Sarmishtha's brilliant logical gymnastics as a really convenient excuse to do exactly what he secretly wanted to do and that Asoka would anyway? It's a profound question about human nature, the flexibility of the law, and the sheer, undeniable power of a well-argued case. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the source material. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll see you next time.